Welcome to the Clarity Advisor Show, where you'll learn how to grow your team today. Join Ken Trupke and his guests as they discuss what works and doesn't work to grow your team in today's world. And now, your host, Ken Trupke.
Welcome to the Clarity Advisor Show. So recession is something that is either here or it will be here. The official definition of a recession is 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP or gross domestic product. I know it's not going to be an economics lesson, so don't worry. But 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth in our gross domestic product, GDP. And the first quarter of 2022, we had a negative 1.6%. And in the second quarter of 2022, we had a negative 0.6. So traditionally, that would be considered a recession. Now, the White House and Wikipedia disagree and have redefined it. But regardless, whether we're in a recession or not in a recession, we're likely to be in a recession at some point. As long as the Federal Reserve exists, there's going to be business cycles. And when there's business cycles, there's going to be booms and busts. There's going to be growth and retraction or recession. And so that concerns a lot of business owners and leaders. If you've got a team, you're concerned about increased costs. You're concerned about inflation. You're concerned about what that inflation might mean to your team. You might already be struggling to get teammates and fill open positions and keep talented people. So if a recession comes along and inflation comes along, more so than even we're experiencing right now, how will you deal with that? So I want to talk about how to build a culture that's recession proof. How can you recession proof your culture? How do you make a place of work that people want to be regardless of those external pressures? And frankly, making money not the most important thing. We know from research that money's not the most important thing, that people stay and leave jobs for other reasons. And 2 of the big reasons that people stay or leave a job is comparing and caring. Comparing, they compare themselves to other people in similar positions. Am I making progress about as much as people next to me? Or am I making as much money as people next to me? And am I making progress and money compared to what I expected? So they're comparing to those 2 things, comparing to people around them and comparing to where they thought they'd be at this point in their career. They also think about caring. Do people here care about me? Does my leader care about me? And are there other teammates who care about me? So people stay and leave jobs more about comparing and caring than they do about the money. But if the money's not right, they for sure will leave over money. And they might even stay for money. But that isn't necessarily the culture that you're looking to create. You're looking to create a culture where people feel good about where they work and that they want to be there. And they do feel good when they compare themselves to where they thought they'd be and how they compare to other people. And they do feel good when they know that they're cared for by their leaders and by their teammates. So what are some specific things we can do in a culture? Well, first, let's step back and define culture. So a culture can be thought of as simply the collection of our behaviors. So every family, every business, every team, any group of people has a culture. And that culture is just the collection of those behaviors. Now, that could be very intentional, which hopefully your culture is or is going to be, or it could be very unintentional. It's just whatever the collection of behaviors happens to be. But there's always a culture. So to make it more intentional, Seth Godin says, culture, you can think of it as people like us do things like this. So the people in the team, in the family, in the business, they do things like this. And that's where we get into the next thing, which is core values. So core values are those things, those behaviors that we want to have in our culture. But before we get there, let's talk about why. People want to come to work for a reason. Now, there's a very famous YouTube talk, TED talk by Simon Sinek called Start With Why. And I would suggest that he's both absolutely right and absolutely wrong. He's absolutely wrong in that customers don't care about your why. They just don't. People don't buy something because of your mission. Now you can argue like a Tom's Shoes attracts people and Warby Parker attracts people because they've got this like buy one when we're going to give one kind of model. So you can feel good about doing business with them. And there's truth to that. But in general, you don't make a decision about what restaurant you eat at or what jeans you buy or what car you buy based on the mission and the why of that company. You buy it because it solves your problem. You buy it because it's a fit for what you need. See, customers are all about them. They are trying to solve a problem, and it's our job to help them solve that problem. It's our job in business to help customers solve the problem that they have, to get the thing that they need or want. And they don't particularly care about us and our why. So that's where Simon Sinek is a little off base, in my opinion. But where does he nail it? Well, if you would apply that to your team, 100%. Your team cares about why. Your team wants to be part of a bigger purpose. We're innately wired to want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And so your team is looking to you and your company to say, what are we doing here that I can feel good about? What is the mission that I can grab onto and want to be part of? And we need to be clear about what our why is so that we can define that and explain that and communicate that to the team because the team cares about the why. So if you want to build that recession-proof culture, you can start with why. Why are we here? Why are we doing this? Why are we serving these customers? Why are we not serving these other customers? Because we can do anything, but we can't do everything. So why did we choose these customers? Why is this mission important to us? And make sure your team understands that. Your team wants to work where there's a purpose and a mission that they can get behind. So that's really number one, is start with why. Then number two is core values. Let's make sure we make clear how we're going to live out that mission, how we're going to achieve our purpose, how we're going to serve our customers. And a model I like to use to think about core values is StrengthsFinder. Now, you're probably familiar with a number of different assessment tools. There's Myers-Briggs, there's Enneagram, there's DISC, and then there's StrengthsFinders. Well, the difference about StrengthsFinder, what makes it unique, is that there's 34 strengths. So mathematically, when you get your top five, which when you take the StrengthsFinder test, you come back with your top five strengths. So out of the 34, you get your five. And they're in a specific order. They're in the order that they're your strengths. So your number one is your strongest thing. And then number two to five. It's a 1 in 33 million chance that somebody's going to have your top five in your same order. In fact, there's been 27 million people that have taken the StrengthsFinder test, and no two people have yet to have the same top five in the same order. That's what you're going for with your core values. You want to have core values that together define you and your organization uniquely. Now, not so uniquely that it takes 1 in 33 million people to be a fit, but unique enough. The idea is that it's unique enough, like StrengthsFinders, that it narrows the field. That, yeah, you have a couple of core values that maybe you've seen other companies have, or you have a couple of core values that people can connect with. But you want to have five that together make you feel unique. That, yeah, somebody might have 1, 2, 3 of those, but nobody has all five. And they don't emphasize them and think about them the way you do. And now you're looking to attract people to you. You're looking to say, do the people you're working with on your team and people you're recruiting to your team, do they share your core values? Because that's a foundational thing. You want to have a culture. If people like us do things like this, well, things like this are our core values. This is how we behave, or at least aspire to behave. Now, this doesn't mean you have to live these perfectly every day. We're human beings. That's not going to happen. And that's okay. But this is what we aspire to do. We aspire to figure it out is a core value with the company I work with. And they live that out. They're going to figure things out. They're going to struggle and fight through things. They're not just going to go, hey, can somebody give me the answer to this? Now, there's also a core value of get real with this company. And that means to have the hard conversations. And part of it is also raise your hand when you don't know. So there's a balance there. They're saying, listen, if you don't know, raise your hand, but and get real that and admit you don't know something, but also figure it out and make sure you're digging in before you just raise your hand for help. So, but together, that get real and figure it out are two very unique core values that even right there, you can weed out a lot of people. They can make a divide of people that should work there and people that shouldn't work there based on, do you embrace a get real value or a figure it out value? And then they have three more. And when you put those all together, it makes for a very unique culture. It's very easy to discern, are people a fit? Because what you want is you want to have such a strong culture that think of it as like a planet with a gravitational pull, that when other people come into your company, that you pull them into your culture. You don't get pulled off into their culture and follow their values. They come in and become part of who you are because you've been very intentional about building the culture that you want. So when you bring new people in, you're looking for fits so that you're not looking to change people. You're looking to find the people that fit. You're not looking to find anybody and then make them change them to fit you. You're looking for the people that do fit, that can come in and be part of the group that you have. So that's how we're going to get that intentional culture. So think about another point here is with the strengths finders is you want to hire then for that character. You're looking to bring the people in that match that, not necessarily people that have the skills, because you can teach the skills. Two things to think about with skills. By definition, a skill can be taught. And secondly, those skills are atrophying. They're going away. They're losing their power and their usefulness. So a long time ago, when personal computers first came out, the key spreadsheet product was what was called Lotus 1-2-3. And people got really good at Lotus 1-2-3. Well, my guess is most of you listening or watching right now have never even heard of Lotus 1-2-3. But I guarantee you the people that had Lotus skills were commanding premium prices in the market. But today, no one's even heard of it. So if you didn't take your Lotus skills and transition them into Microsoft Excel and then maybe into Google Sheets or some similar products that are current and currently being used, well, those skills became worthless. So over time, those skills atrophied. Those skills became useless in the market. So you needed to upgrade your skills. So if you just hired somebody who was great at Lotus, but wasn't a culture fit, well, then as their Lotus skills waned, if they didn't go back and refill and learn Excel, well, then what you've got? You've just got somebody whose skills aren't that valuable and who doesn't even fit your culture. But if you found someone who fit your culture, as their Lotus skills waned, you can start teaching them Excel and encourage them to go learn Excel to stay relevant. So skills can be taught and they're going to go away. So we've got to always be replenishing them. But character and core values aren't like that. We pretty much either have those and believe in those and act on those, or we don't. We believe and act on other core values. So you want to hire for those core values. And that can be tricky because sometimes you think, oh, I need a person who can do this, 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 and this, because that's what I have a need for right now. Well, that's true. But can you find somebody that has those skills and has your core values? And if you have to pick, I strongly encourage you to choose the character over the skills because the skills can be taught. And even if they have those skills that you need, as your needs change and those skills go away, well, you're going to need to teach them new skills anyway. So why not teach the new skills to the person who's a great fit rather than the person who wasn't a fit just because you had a short-term need? That's the kind of decision that's going to determine how strong your culture is. If you're more of a mercenary hiring where you're just bringing in the right person at the right time for the right skills, and you're not really concerned about building a cohesive team, well, then that's what you're going to get. So, and then when the recession comes along and when economic times are challenging and people are facing inflation and you need to raise prices and pay more salaries, well, you're going to struggle to keep the right people because it's going to be all about mercenaries who just want more money. Whereas if you can build that culture that people care and have bought into the mission and bought into your core values, well, they're more likely to work with you on those things and understand that It's not just about the money, and they aren't even going to be demanding of the money because they love where they work. They're going to be willing to work for what you can pay them, not necessarily what they might get going somewhere else, because they want to be here and you want them here. So it's always a two-way street, and money still is a piece of the puzzle. But what we're trying to do in recession proofing our culture is to make it so that money's not the most important thing and that skills aren't the most important thing, but that we're building a cohesive team. I've got a few more tips for you. We're going to go over those right after this short break on the Clarity Advisor Show.
Is your business where you want it to be or on track to get there? Clarity Advisors helps business leaders improve communication and get your team aligned and engaged for greater success. We specialize in helping you streamline your sales and operating systems to improve efficiency and grow your profits. Call or text Ken at 616-822-2998 to have a complimentary 12-minute call to see what some clarity could do for you.
Okay, welcome back to the Clarity Advisor Show. Today we're talking about how to recession-proof your culture, how to build a workplace and a team where people want to be there, and that when hard times come, economic challenges come, inflation comes, your team wants to be there and you can be the place people want to come, and that you're not struggling with your team, you're just fighting against the economy, because that's going to happen. And you want to be ready to have that recession-proof culture. So the next thing we want to do here is communicate. Now that we've got our why and we've got our core values, we need to communicate those things. And I would suggest there's a couple things you want to do. You want to have a global communication and a local communication. And that by global, I mean that as the leader, you're bringing this up. Whenever you're talking to the team, you're reminding them of that mission, that why we're here doing what we do. You're reminding them who we're serving and why. And you're reminding them of the core values. So I heard it during the response to the pandemic era a couple of years ago that leaders inhale fear and exhale hope. And you've got to take in all the fears that your team has, all the anxiety that your team has, and you're exuding hope. You're at the top reminding them of what's good about what you're doing, why it's important what you're doing, and why the way you do it, the how, the core values matter. So you want to take in all their fears and exhale out their hope so that your team hears from you and it's reiterated and reminded. See, you can hear it once, but it doesn't sink in. You need to hear it over and over and over. And as much as it feels awkward as a leader to be, geez, every time I have these quarterly team meetings or in my monthly summary to the team or the emails I send or whatever it is, how you communicate to your team, and hopefully you're doing all those, it just feels like they're just sick of hearing me say that. No, they're not. Dave Ramsey says, until your team can do a serviceable impression of you, you haven't repeated yourself enough. That is, you need to repeat yourself so often that they can imitate you. They can do an impression of you saying your sayings. And that's where you want to be, because that means they've internalized it. They get it. They need to hear it over and over. So make sure you're communicating globally from you to them. The other global communication is from them to you. I would encourage you to implement two things if you're not already doing them. One is a weekly summary, and the other is a weekly one-on-one. So the weekly summary is where everyone on your team puts together just a short memo. Maybe it has the highlight and the low point of the week, but more importantly, it has their accomplishments, key accomplishments this week, and key projects and goals for next week. And just 3 to 5, super short, super quick, but every Friday they're doing that. And that's a chance for their leader and you, if you're the senior leader. So don't copy everybody in between you. Just have it be to their leader and then copy the president or the CEO or whoever. And the idea is that it's a chance for you to know what they're up to and for then you to respond and encourage them. Say, hey, great job. It sounds like you're doing this thing. That really reminds me of this core value. And it's just a chance that you can, by them communicating to you, you can make sure that it's sinking in and they're getting it. The other thing to do is the weekly one-on-one. Now that is with just their leader. So the people above them aren't going to be involved in that weekly one-on-one. But the idea is you're getting together and the question isn't, what are you working on? It's not a status update. It's how are you feeling? How are you doing? And how can I help? And it can be about business. Are you stuck somewhere that you need some help? Are you feeling good about your role or your project? And can I help? But it could also be they might bring something up in their personal life. Like, hey, I'm struggling because I've had sick kids for 3 weeks and it seems like we don't get enough sleep and I haven't gotten a break. And maybe there's a way that you can help with that. Maybe you can say, hey, why don't you take a day off? Or, hey, how about a gift card and you can just get dinner brought in one night and then take one thing off your plate? Anything like that, that's going to have a huge impact on your team. And it's going to remind them that this is a place where people care about each other. My leader cares about me. My teammates care about me. Remember, that's one of the things that people are going to use to decide, do I want to stay or do I want to leave? So meeting weekly to have that kind of how are you doing conversation, not what are you working on? Maybe you get into some of that, but the primary focus is how are you doing and how can I help you? You want to stay in touch with your team. This is a chance to show that you care and to listen, not to get a status update and make sure they're knocking out things and the business is moving forward. That's not the purpose of this meeting. So that's your global approach. The global is that from the leader out to the people, communicating and reiterating until they can mock you. And then the local is where you've got these one-on-one meetings and the weekly summaries. Now, I'm sorry, the from them. The local is where you're going to get personal. You're going to call people. You're going to call people maybe once every couple of weeks. So maybe every Friday as the leader, you call one or two people on your team. And that's not just your direct reports. That's your whole team. And you're calling them to say, how are you doing? It's that same kind of weekly one-on-one that you would have if you were their direct leader. Just how are you doing? Just checking on you. No real agenda. Just want to see how you're doing. It can be a 2-minute phone call, but it's going to have a huge impact. The other local thing you can do, and by local, I just mean drilling down to the individual, not a global out to the whole team. The other thing you do is send cards, send a handwritten note, send a handwritten note to their partner, to their spouse, and say, hey, just wanted you to know what a great job your spouse does, how happy we are to have that person on the team. You send a note to that spouse, watch what happens to that teammate, how they're going to come in with a glow and an excitement because you praised them to someone else. And so now their partner's like, wow, you must be doing a great job because your boss just sent me a card. Or send it right to them and just say, hey, just wanted you to know what a great job you're doing. For sure on birthdays and anniversaries, you want to be sending out those handwritten cards. You just want to know how much we appreciate you. Maybe you attach a gift card, $20 gift card or something in that, but maybe not. It's more about the emotion and the connection and the caring than about the actual thing. So the thing could just be a token, but that's how you want to communicate locally. So globally, send emails and messages and have meetings and then have people come back to you with their weekly summaries. And then locally, you're making phone calls and sending cards. The next thing we want to do is have a daily huddle. You should be having a huddle for a lot of reasons. There's metric and progress reasons. There's who's stuck and who needs help kind of reasons. But the purpose regarding a cohesive culture, a recession-proof culture in the daily huddle is it's that chance to be together. It's a chance to remind us that we're all here and we care about each other and we're a team and let's look at each other, especially in a remote workforce where you're not physically together. You can at least see each other and you can laugh and joke a little bit. I encourage people to start their huddle with some good news or appreciation. Maybe appreciation is one of your core values. And so here's a chance to live that core value. Hey, who has appreciation? And people can shout out other people. And again, it's like sending that card or making that phone call. People light up when someone else appreciates them and does it publicly. Now, maybe you've got some people who don't want that public recognition, and that's okay. And you can adapt to that. But just the fact that people are looking for reasons to appreciate each other is going to be huge for your culture. So you want to have that daily huddle so that people are together, so that people feel connected. See, being together is really important to us. There's a reason solitary confinement is a punishment. There's a reason it was so painful when some states were locked down in response to COVID, was because we're meant to be together. We're meant to connect. So at a minimum, you want to have that daily huddle. And please don't fall into the trap of thinking like, we don't have time for this. We can't afford this. You know how much dollars are tied up in this meeting? Maybe once a week, maybe once a month, but daily? Listen, you can pull people together for 10 minutes. That's all it needs to be. You can accomplish a lot if you're organized in 10 minutes. But to pull the team together for 10 minutes to connect and remind each other that we're here for each other and then get back to work, especially in a remote environment, super powerful. So the next thing you want to do is now, as we're thinking about people might be leaving, or you might have open spots, and how do I retain the people I have? Well, a key concept here is attractiveness. You want to be attractive. Don't be the 30 something guy living in his parents' basement playing video games. How's that for a stereotype? Thinking like, I'm going to get the best, smartest, most professional woman out there who's got this great career and makes all this money and she's great with kids and she's like the perfect woman. Why would that woman be interested in that guy? See, you need to, here's the phrase I love. You need to be the person you're looking for is looking for. So the person that guy in his basement is looking for, is she looking for him? Probably not. So he needs to become the person that person is looking for. And as a company, that advice works as well. We need to be the company that the kind of person we're looking for, the person who fits our core values, the person who's got great skills and is willing to keep replenishing those skills, the person we want on our team, we want to be the company that person is attracted to. We want to be the company the recruit we're looking for is looking for. That makes hiring and retaining so much easier. When you're that attractive company, people aren't as worried about the money and the position and the title when they're attracted to your organization. Like, I just want to be part of this. Boy, I see what you guys stand for in your mission. That's exciting to me. I see your core values and I feel really aligned. I see all the communication going on and that makes me feel connected. And I see you guys do these cards and calls and appreciation in the huddle. And I see that you care about each other. That's the kind of place I want to work. Be attractive. You've got to be attractive. You can't just sit around and be this kind of old school company and be like, nobody wants to work anymore. Can't find good people. I was watching a TV show from the 70s a few weeks ago. And in the show, they had a business guy who, of course, was an evil businessman, because that's TV's job, is to portray all business people as evil and greedy. So the evil, greedy businessman was saying, you can't find good people anymore. This is a show from the 70s. So for the last 50 years, apparently, nobody can find good people. Well, that can't be true. What's true is that there's people at all times and all seasons who aren't able to find good people, who don't think good people are out there. But I would suggest the reason is they're not the people they're looking for are looking for. Because in all times and all seasons, other people are finding people because they're being the kind of company and the kind of people that attract other people. So you might want to think about this again in that dating analogy. You've got to continue to date your people. You've got to continue to be the person that they were looking for initially. You got to show those kindnesses and do those little things. If you think about dating, when you're dating, typically you're doing all kinds of things. You're thinking about that other person and how can you please them and what could you do to surprise them and what can we do to make this a special time and how can I make them feel special as a person. And then a lot of times you get married and that kind of goes out the window. You just forget. And a lot of great marriage advice is around the idea of, well, what did you do when you were dating? What did you do when you were first trying to attract that person? Well, what were you doing when things were exciting in the early days? Well, go back to doing those things. Well, it works at work too. When we're recruiting people, we got our best foot forward. Now they do too, right? People interview great. They dress up. They're ready for the questions. But then we get into real life and everybody kind of drops their guard. So what could you do to go back to that dating kind of mindset, that recruiting mindset, and be the company every day that shows that deep caring, that shows that deep concern, that wants people to feel good about where they're working? So you got to do these things if you want to attract the right people, because if good people are out there and good people are looking for great companies. So if you become those companies, you'll pull people in. All right, our last point is be intentional. And the point when I coach sales teams, I make over and over, which is whatever's in your head is going to come out your mouth. Meaning it doesn't really matter what you say nearly as much as what you're thinking. As human beings, we have great built-in radar for truth, authenticity, and integrity. And when people are saying something that they don't believe, we can tell. I don't know how we can tell, but we can tell. So if it's in your head that, oh, Ken said I need to have core values and a why and communicate with people, I think that's stupid, but I don't want to lose my people and I want to hire new people. So I guess I better do those things. Listen, as soon as you start doing those things with that mindset, it's not going to work. Everyone's going to see through it. People are going to say, I don't think they really buy into this. I don't think this is real. I don't think this is authentic. This isn't really what they're about. On the other hand, if you really believe it, like we're going to be that company, we're going to communicate, we're going to care, we're going to help people, we're going to build a team, we're going to support each other, we're going to have a why that's powerful and reiterate it and communicate it. It doesn't matter if you flub the words. It doesn't matter if you make that phone call and kind of stumble around like, hey, I just called, I just care about you and I wanted to, like, it doesn't matter what exactly you say or don't say, the feeling is going to come through. That's why it's so important when you're doing, especially those phone calls, that you make a phone call, not send them a text, because there's so much lost in that text versus the richness of a phone call and that synchronous communication. So, and the reason we can do it with a card is because a card, just a handwritten card, blows people away right there. It shows that you took so much time versus a text. So you can say, well, don't I lose just as much with a handwritten message as I do with a text? Yes, but you gain so much more because they knew it took you some effort. So just a quick side note there. But when you're calling people or you're in a team meeting or a quarterly, maybe a town hall type meeting, and you flub it a little bit, people aren't going to care. They're going to give you the grace on that. And more importantly, it's still going to land. It's still going to sink in because what's in your head is, I really do care. This really is what we're trying to do. This is real. And so what's going to come out of your mouth kind of doesn't matter. It's going to work. And the reason I coach salespeople on this is if you're not thinking what I have is good for people, this prospect really needs our product or our service. If you don't really believe that, it doesn't matter if you read the script. It doesn't matter if you overcome all their objections. You're not going to close the sale because they're going to get a sense of something's not right here. I don't know what it is, but I got a weird feeling. Well, that weird feeling is you don't believe it. Now, on the other hand, if you absolutely believe I'm helping people, I'm making these prospecting calls because there's people out there that need what we do, and it's my job to find them and help them. It kind of also doesn't matter what you say. People are going to get your feeling. Our feelings and our attitudes are contagious. Think about how contagious we thought the COVID was and how all the things we did to react to that. Well, to the extent that diseases can be contagious, so can attitudes. People can catch them and they can spread just as quickly and just as powerfully. So if you've got the right attitude, it doesn't matter what's going to come out your mouth. People are going to pick up on it and buy into it. And if you're selling, they're going to want to buy. Now, maybe it's not the right time or whatever. There's other selling things to consider. But in general, they're going to buy you. They're going to believe in you. And back to the culture and recession-proofing your culture, your team is going to believe you and buy into you and buy into the mission and believe the communication and give you grace when you stumble and fumble if you do, because they know there's sincerity there. They know there's authenticity there. They know there's real things behind this, and you have their best interest in mind. Again, people are leaving jobs because they don't feel like someone cares. And when you really believe and care, it's going to come out in your actions and in your words, and they're going to get it. So to wrap up, you want that culture that attracts people. You want to be the company that the people you're looking for are looking for. You want to communicate it after you've defined what is our why? Why are we doing this? And how are we going to behave? Those core values. Now you got to be ready to hire and fire on those. And that can be tricky. The hiring is a little easier, although it can be tough when they don't quite have the skills. You got to weigh like, oh, this person has a ton of skills, but doesn't really fit the values. This person doesn't quite have all the skills, but boy, they're a great core value fit. I'm encouraging you, take that person that's the core value fit. And then if somebody on your team isn't living up to these core values and consistently it just appears like they're not a fit. So a company I work with has put others first as a core value. And that has a lot of depth and nuance to it. But generally, we're here to help other people on the team. We're going to serve other people on the team. That's got to be always our mindset. And hopefully that matches with our actions. Well, sometimes there's a person on the team, it started to evolve that a person on their team was all about themselves. They would even say like, well, I don't need to participate in that meeting because people know how to get a hold of me if they need me, and I don't need anything from them. Well, that's not really a put others first kind of attitude. We had somebody who on a sales team that I worked with that didn't want to participate in a group activity because they didn't think it was a good idea. And in that case, we actually encouraged them to put others first and go ahead and participate. It was like a less than 1 hour project per week. We're like, really, you can't be a good teammate and put others first for 1 hour a week? It was actually significantly less than an hour. And they're like, yeah, you're right. You know what? I didn't think of it that way. But now that you put it that way, I'm going to go ahead and jump in. So, you can nudge people and remind them that these are the core values and hey, you're maybe slipping a little bit and let's make sure we're on track. But sometimes people just aren't on track. And you need to say, you know what? You're not really a core value fit. Love what you can do, love what you know, and love your experience. And that's a great fit for us in terms of the tactical, practical, getting things done. But you just don't fit us. You're not the people like us who do the things like this. You got to be ready to fire on that. And that's where this gets real and can get really tricky because you might have a superstar salesperson who just doesn't match and align with your core values. You're like, geez, they've been killing it for years. Now that I've defined my core values and I'm trying to live them, it might mean this person's out. Yeah, it might. If you want to build a recession-proof culture, if you want to have a team that's cohesive and people like us do things like this and everybody feels part of it and cares for it, and the gravitational pull is drawing in those people that you're attracting to be the thing that you've intentionally built, then yeah, that might be the case. So the recession's either here or it's coming. That's a fact. We're not going to see Q3 numbers from the government until December. Well, by then we'll know we're already feeling it. And it kind of doesn't matter. Are we already starting to feel the effects of a recession? Are we starting to feel the effects of inflation? Are people getting anxious and nervous such that we need to absorb that fear and exude that confidence and strength? Yeah, we're already here. And even if you don't believe we're here, we're going to be here because there's booms and busts in the business cycle. So why would you not want to get your culture ready for that? And if you're wherever you are, you can always improve. If you're already, I think my culture's at a 6, well, you could be a 7 or an 8. If your culture's at a 2, that's okay. Start doing these things, be intentional, and start moving it to a 3 or 4. Everything you do strengthens your culture. And it's going to recession-proof your culture. And even if you don't buy into a recession or we don't experience it as strongly as we might, well, why would you not want to have a stronger culture? Why would you not be the place that attracts the great people? Why would you not want a team of people that care about what you're doing and being part of your team and not worrying about where they might get another X or Y more compensation? Have the team that you want and the team that wants to be there, whether you're recession proofing it or just improving it. So take those tips and lead well, build your team, strengthen your team, and we'll see you next time on the Clarity Advisor Show.
Thank you for listening to the Clarity Advisor Show. Clarity Advisors is a speaking, training, and consulting firm specializing in helping you simplify your sales and operating systems to improve efficiency and grow your profits. Connect with Clarity Advisors today to learn more about how they can help you improve communication and get your team aligned and engaged for greater success.